Good evening. I'd like to call this September 13th, 2022 review session to order. Madam Treasurer, may we have a roll call? Present.
Present.
Here.
Present. Dr. Pickett? Present. Dr. Goodwin? Here. Mr. Lacy?
Here.
7.
Thank you. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I must say, that sounded good. That sounded good. Strong voices today. Love it. I love it. We will begin with our superintendent's recommendations. Dr. Lally.
Thank you. The first recommendation for review tonight is the Human Resources Agenda, and it's there for the board to take a look and see if they have any questions.
Thank you. The board can review our human resources, and if there are any questions, we go from there. Dr. Goodwin.
I love seeing you. Always my favorite person. Real quick for you, can you tell me how we are doing with our winter athletic recruitment numbers? Do you know about where we are in those? I see some of the positions on here, just if you do.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Is the mic on? All of the athletics hirings, all of that goes through the athletic department, and so they're kind of a separate entity essentially. I know it all ultimately comes onto the HR agenda, but as far as I know, everything's on track. But I can't give you as much specifics about those positions as I can with other positions. That all runs through Executive Director Jones and her team.
I'll check on that and get that to you by Friday.
Thank you. Okay, I think this question is for you, Dr. Lally. How are we doing with our study hall positions? If you have any idea just of how we're going with that.
I do. We have applications from people, teachers, and others that would like to take over those positions, but there are study tables already occurring from the original group of study hall coordinators before we put the new process in place. So those study hall tables have been occurring in 4 of the buildings so far, and principals have been recruiting teachers to apply for the positions as well. So we are, I believe it closes on Friday, so there are interviews being set up now to hire the staff, the full staff. But the singular study hall coordinators have been working since about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, I just have one more question about the long-term subs. Have you heard, because I imagine you guys do a 30, 60, or 90-day check-in, how our long-term subs are adjusting to their new roles, and if there are any supports to help them in these positions?
So one of the things that I've been really looking forward to telling the board about, and I shared this with Dr. Lally a little bit yesterday, is we're now doing HR visits across the district, and so like it started last week. So we did two days last week and 1 day so far this week. So there are 9 buildings that we've been to. We're calling them HR Empower Hours, and we're going out and visiting each building, and with a very short agenda, but also kind of just, hey, what do you need? How can we help you? Oh, you have a question about benefits, or you have a question about, could be really anything. I signed some people's loan forgiveness documents, just whatever people needed. So that was an opportunity that we've not been doing before, and thus far, it's early, been very, very positive response to that. I say that because we have met with a number of long-term subs in those opportunities, but also, again, we've only been to 9 buildings so far, so there's more to come on that. We do have our partners specifically. We have a list of long-term subs, and our partners that are assigned to each given building, they're specifically making an effort to go out and find the individual long-term subs, and separate from, hey, whatever might be needed in the building today, checking in with those individuals and saying, hey, how you doing? What do you need? Can I get you some support through the coaching that's available in the district. So that is an intentional effort that we're making through our HR business partner team as well.
And additionally, Dr. Goodwin, I double-checked with curriculum to make sure that the academic coordinators were in buildings to make sure that they are out there supporting the long-term subs as well.
That's good. That's really good to hear you guys have gone in that direction. I mean, I like that type of innovation. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions on HR? Board Member Sampson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick question. Number 6. I'm having some, if somebody can update me on how we are doing a reduction in force of a teacher. And I'm also understanding that this teacher was instrumental in helping the students' opponents come in 10th place in a national professional business competition in Dallas last year. Why is this a reduction in force? Like, can we, this person did a wonderful job. Like, why are we reducing his job?
The program actually changed, and the qualifications were different. The CTE program was updated with, for the media to be more social media based, as opposed to what was occurring before. So through the CTE process, that program was updated and basically modernized, and then it ended up being that he had less seniority than the other teacher, and because of that, because both have the same credential, but he had less seniority, that's the reason for the reduction in force. There were about 9 students in that program last year.
I'm interested, so if somebody can give me information by business, I'm interested to see what those changes are. I just hate to see, I don't understand how we're having a reduction in force of a teacher when there's a teacher shortage in the country.
Yep.
And we have a gentleman who invested a lot in the lives of the young people that he served last year. I'm not understanding, so thank you.
If it's okay, I'd like to give a very short context to what you're asking there as well.
All right.
Beyond additional to what Dr. Lally had just shared, we did meet with that individual, and it purely was a basis of that individual's license. Had that person had additional options in their license, they would have been slotted, moved from here to there. So our goal, when that happens, is to keep those individuals, but he happened to be, pretty limited by his license, and so there was not another job that we could put him into. So that, sending someone away is definitely not our goal. And also further, I would just say that meeting happened in the spring, and frankly, we should have had this on the agenda a long time ago. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions, Mr. Sampson?
Not at this time, Mr. President.
I had a couple questions. One, I know we had talked before about how we looking to possibly even transition some of our long-term subs and getting them the credentials needed to become teachers. Can you give an update on how that has been going throughout the district, Chief Harmon?
So there is one individual on, I was trying to scroll and find it. It's a change of assignment on, here you go, number 30. There's an individual on the agenda tonight that is exactly that scenario, who has fulfilled their licensure requirements and is now, once the board votes, I guess in a week, will be made a regular, fully licensed, fully credentialed teacher college graduate. And our goal is to keep on moving folks in that direction. We meet with our licensure folks, Dana Darling specifically in my office, meets with individuals and kind of helps them navigate that process. There are a number of folks who are very interested in doing that, and there are also some long-term subs who, that's not their goal to become fully licensed and licensed as a classroom teacher, I guess I should say it that way.
Appreciate that. And then following up with your comments around the HR visits, with that, do you guys have anything in place for what are some of the follow-ups after you visit a school? If those people who had questions, who do they reach out to?
Yeah.
Are we looking at that kind of process? And then also, what does it look like from that lens when we, say we see something on an HR agenda where we have, numerous people from one building or numerous people from one position? How are we then responding quickly to those kind of things to see, why is this happening? What are some of the things that we can do in place to be more preventative there too?
So, as you're aware, as the board's aware, we are doing exit conferences with individuals. So that's not a brand new thing. We, updated that probably 6 months ago, I would say. The first part of your question was, how are we kind of keeping track of what's been asked and how do we respond back? We have a running document of, we were in this building and these were questions that were asked, and we actually have attendance sheets of who attended. So we can say, this second grade teacher asked this question, and Stacy Mops answered that question, or we need to get back with that person, or Dave Harmon answered that question. But we have a running list of questions to kind of see if there's any themes that come up, and so, man, this question's come up 12 times. We need to communicate that to the whole building or whole district. So we are tracking that information to try to do exactly what you just asked.
Okay, then two more to follow up with that. So then I know we talked about doing those exit interviews. Then also, how are we capturing some of the feelings there for people that we want to get their situations rectified before they have to do an exit interview? Or say before they do leave the district, if we see a couple people leaving, how can we then go over and say, okay, this is happening, how can we fix some of these things before we have to do more exit interviews?
Those are the two items that I talked about earlier specifically for that reason, which are the business partners meeting with all new employees as well as long-term subs. I said long-terms earlier, should have also included new employees. Okay. Our business partners are meeting with those individuals and checking in with them regularly, saying, hey, how you doing? What supports do you need? Everything okay? Can I get you some additional people in the classroom? Or, oh, you need a new bulletin board. Let me help you figure out how to do that. So there's that. And then our HR Empower Hour visits are, again, for that very reason as well.
Okay, and then my last one I have. With that HR Empower Hour, are there any other departments through the district that are joining you all on those visits?
They're not, but, we cover a lot of things. So, there's a lot of things that fit under HR. So there's things that lead into pay. There's things that lead into insurance, benefits. So we kind of have a lot of topics that we cover in our, our group as well. So
Appreciate it. That's all for me. Any other
Thanks, sir.
questions?
thank you, board.
Any other questions on the human resources? I see there are none. Dr. Lawley, your next recommendation, please.
The next review would be for DEA after July 10th. Those names are listed there.
Any questions? I see there are none. Your next recommendation, Dr. Lawley.
Next recommendation are contracts. These contracts are listed there. Many of the contracts on the agenda for tonight are for 21st century grants with our neighborhood school centers. You'll see those listed there. And you'll see some contracted work for our school counselors, a consultant that is being brought in, services being brought in to work with our counselors. And that's on November 21st. That's on a staff development day. And then I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have about any of the other contracts that are on here.
Thank you. Are there any questions on contracts? Yes, sir, Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. CPI, how is, I see there's an agreement for $56,000. How is CPI instituted, implemented in our schools, and it says training for staff? What staff are being trained in CPI?
I'm going to ask Dr. Burton to come up. CPI has been ongoing, and it actually is part of what we are required to do for the special education review that occurred 2-3 years ago now. We're still implementing things and reviewing things and updating things on that. So Dr. Burton.
The $56,000 is to do the trainer. Currently, we only have 3 trainers in our district, and it's impossible for those 3 trainers to train everyone in the district who needs training. So the $56,000 will allow us to train more staff to be trainers. So we'll have a total of anywhere from 12 to 15 staff members who can train principals, teachers, paras, bus drivers, everyone who's required to be trained.
And can you talk a little bit about when and how we use CPI?
Anytime someone's going to restrain a student, they must be CPI trained. So CPI has two parts. There's the de-escalation part, where you learn to de-escalate situations rather than using physical restraint. When that does not work, there's a correct way to restrain students, and the training teaches staff how to do that. All principals must be trained, all assistant principals must be trained, teachers in ED classrooms must be trained, paraprofessionals in those classrooms must be trained, along with a number of other groups that must be trained on a yearly basis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other questions on contracts? Dr. Goodwine?
Dr. Burton, I have one question for you. Are SROs also trained in the MUST group? Are there,
Yes, yes, they are trained.
Okay.
Yes, they must be trained.
okay, that's all I want to know. Question on the card, what is this, Card Integrator Corporation. I see this is for student badges. Are we planning to use student badges actively? Because I see there's also, in the treasurer section, there's a rec for badges. And if we are, what are we utilizing them for? If you can just.
Dr. Burton, would you like to talk about that, please? It's through, partially through safety and security as well.
Okay.
Currently, our biggest use of student badges has been on the buses with the international students because those students weren't able to give us their, communicate with staff members. So students have really nice badges that look like this that can be scanned for the buses. But right now, that's the number one use for the badges. They can be used if we needed them to be scanned for lunch, to just be used for a plethora of things, but right now, we're mostly using it for buses.
I got some suggestions, but they can wait for another time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Since Dr. Goodwine is going to have hers wait, I'll have mine wait as well. Any other questions on contracts? Not a question, but just a comment, Dr. Lally. I know we had, before they've come in, but if we could try to schedule these presentations from some of our 21st century partners to come in and kind of talk about, once we get into the school year, to talk about some of the things that are going on there. I'd love to see that. If there are no other comments on contracts, your next recommendation, please.
Next recommendation is to allow Stivers School for the Arts to take an out-of-country trip to Canada. And it's explained there in the rationale. They're looking at performing, but also having some master classes, from some well-known artists and choreographers from all over the country. So it's a international dance conference as well that they would be part of.
Okay, and with this, Dr. Lally, is there any funding needed, or will they be funding it on their own?
Fundraisers will be held
Thank you.
with students.
Any other question on this recommendation? Seeing none, your next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
Next recommendation is a memorandum of understanding between AFSCME and the district. This memorandum was passed once before, but as they started to implement it, realized that some of the wording was not clear enough. So they went back through and clarified the wording, and you can see that in the document based upon the bold and the underline, just to make sure that everyone understands when their seniority date actually occurs. It now occurs at the beginning of the contract year, so July 1st, as opposed to on your anniversary. So it's much easier for the treasurer and her department to track, much easier now for the employee to know what their change is going to be at the beginning of the year, as opposed to their anniversary date of hiring sometime in February or May or June.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the recommendation? I see none. Your next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
The next recommendation is for the Office of Cultural Engagement, males of color, females of color, and this is for gardening with the Greater Edgemont Community Coalition, and they want to offer agricultural and food expertise for students enrolled in the program. And you can see throughout the memorandum that it's no cost to Dayton Public Schools, however, that we are monitoring the work that would be done through the actual activities that are there. The memorandum indicates what the program will actually look like and what the learning will be taking place. It includes nutrition work. It also includes urban farming, and it also includes hands-on work with actually growing produce, flowers, herbs, trees, things like that. So it's active learning, and it will be beneficial for the students, making sure that they understand how to raise a garden and the nutritional value of it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Are there any questions on the recommendation? Dr. Goodwine, and then Board Member Sampson.
Yes, if I could just request kind of a report out, because I know we have passed several MOUs for this department, and just getting just a more comprehensive look at everything that they have going on. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goodwine. Board Member Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Lally, do you know how these 6 schools were selected to participate in this program?
I do not know, but I'll find out and let you know.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I had just a quick question. With these kind of programs that we're doing and we're offering it to those students that are involved in males of color and females of color, what are we doing to get the word out throughout those schools for students who may not have been involved, but, may want to get involved because of, in this case, they might want to get involved because of the gardening program? How are we making sure that students who currently aren't involved in males of color or females of color are then getting that information to see if that's something that they might get involved in?
I'm not certain of that, but again, I can ask Dr. Worley how they announce it at school. I know that students that are not part of the program are allowed to participate in activities, but I don't know how they communicate that. So I'll find that out for you.
Appreciate it. Are there any other questions? Ms. Witt-Gagne, then Dr. Goodwine.
Thank you. Superintendent, I mean, gardening and, I think that these work experiences and these invaluable opportunities that we present our kids with, as Board Member Smith said, should be spread across our whole community, but also the company that's doing this CE&J Environmental Food Services Club program, how we can establish even a deeper relationship with them so that we can build on some of these programmatic pieces, because, the food is harder and harder to come by, and as much as we can grow and do our own, I think that would be valuable for our students and community.
Thank you.
Dr. Goodwine.
Just wanted to add on to my request. Can you ask Tim, too, to give us a list at the start of the year, the amount of students that started with the program, and just some information of where we are to date, and if kids have dropped out of the program, if he knows any information of why that's happening, just some of that information.
Okay.
Any other questions? No, your next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
The next recommendation is the creation of a salary schedule and, in reality, a position called Student Success Coach. Several months ago, Mr. Sampson expressed his concern about our truancy department, and we worked together with principals and also with assistant principals and some of the administrative team in the central office to design a program that would be based in each of our high schools. There would be a person based in each of our high schools who would be responsible for the attendance and the follow-up with students, making sure that we have a closer connection right there in the building with our students, making sure that they're actually contacted if they don't show up to school, that there's some follow-up with that. And there's a job description that was created by that group, that team of people. And this is the job that we're talking about. There would be one in each of the, in each of the high schools. That tends to be right now where we have our most chronic absenteeism and most of our absenteeism overall. So we want to start there, see how this works with that hands-on, right there, immediate focus in that building and that connection for those students. So that's what this position is.
Thank you. Any questions? Board Member Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Lally, this is good news. Glad to hear that we're putting focus on attendance and following up and having some dedicated individual to help with the needs of our students and/or families. The question I do have is the current truancy officers, the two individuals that we have, what will their responsibility be in conjunction with the student success coaches?
They'll continue to do what they're doing right now. I think we need some new windows. They will continue to do home visits to students. They'll continue to monitor the elementary, the middle school, and also the high school as well. They do our chronic absenteeism data collection of all that, so that'll still fall through them. And they'll meet regularly with the person in charge of this, who is Joy Stokes, out of enrollment, along with the student success coaches. So it'll be one large team still, but it'll be more than just 4 people.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Dr. Goodwin, did you have a question?
Does this position, will it also be at Mount Street? Are they included in all the high schools, or is it excluded?
Mount Street actually has a person that does that anyway. Many of the positions at Mount Street, we just continued to support when they came. So they have someone who does that already for Mount Street, so we don't have to add a person for there. They'll be part of working with Ms. Stokes and that team, but they kind of do that separate on their own already.
That's all I had.
Any other questions? See none. Does that conclude your recommendations, Dr. Love?
It does, Mr. President.
Thank you. Madam Treasurer, your recommendations, please.
I have amended certificates of estimated resources. We are amending the certificate of estimated resources to align with our appropriation. And these funds are, we have 4 funds. Fund 516, Title 6B. We are increasing it by 1.4 million. Fund 536, School Improvement, 1.1 million. Fund 551, Bilingual Education, by $50,000. And Fund 584, Title 4, by $339K. This is just to align with our appropriations. Those are the increases. Do you have any question on that?
Are there any questions from the board? I see no questions. Madam Treasurer, your next recommendation, please.
Okay. Next recommendation is our appropriation, supplemental appropriation. And this one, we are increasing our appropriations in general fund, $50,000 to supplies for the international school. Another one, what we increasing in general fund is $105,000 for neighborhood schools. We are increasing it from $50K to $65K. Another one is we are adjusting student enrollment by $390K. And we are increasing $84,000 to finish shared resources contract up to October 31, 2022. Those are general fund increases. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Are there any questions on the recommendation? I see none. Your next recommendation, please.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lacy. My apologies.
I should have said something. Okay, the Student Enrollment Center, it says an increase of $713,418. Did you net that?
yeah,
with
I
what-
netted that.
With what came out of
With,
safety and security?
with truancy. It's a net. What we did is we adjusted the student enrollment by moving the budget and staff for truancy department, including the 6 new student success coaches to this department.
Okay, so the people were moved, so their
Yeah.
budget moved with them. Is
Yeah.
that basically it?
Yeah,
And the 84,000 is for shared services?
yeah, 84 shared services up to October 31st.
Do we know how much longer this shared service contract's going to go on? I understand it's like $21,000 a month.
The contract says up to October 31st, 2022.
And then that will be the end of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies again, Mr. Lacy.
That's quite all right. I should have said something.
Are there any other questions? Dr. Goodwin?
I have one on the shared services. This board approved a not to exceed on shared services, is that correct? And we're now exceeding them. Are we still in need of their services?
I don't know. It's not in my department.
Okay. Are we still in need of shared services?
I think the reason that this is still on there is because of the way the contract was worded. I think that money is owed to them because the way the contract was worded, from what I understand. Treasurer, is that correct?
Okay, the amount was calculated for fiscal year up to June 30th, 2022. But the contract was written up to October 31st, 2022.
Okay. Alex, can you look into this contract? Not to put you on the spot, just, if you could just check this contract out to see what our obligations, if we don't no longer need the services, but if we have a not to exceed, but we also have a contract date that's different than our not to exceed, just to see what our actual legal obligations are here. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Anything else, Dr. Goodwin?
That's it.
All right, I see no other questions. Your next recommendation, please, Madam Treasurer.
Okay, the next one is monthly financial statements. The monthly one, the finance committee meets on Thursday. This is just a spaceholder until the finance committee meets. Next Tuesday, it will be approved by the board.
Next recommendation, please.
Next one is board minutes. I don't think you will have a question, but the minutes are for August 9, August 11, August 13, August 16, and 26.
Thank you. Next recommendation, please.
The next one is donations. We love donations. And what we have is from Dayton Unit NAACPA for Louis Troy Elementary School, 50 books, bags, and supplies worth $50. Adaptive computing for Treasurer's Office, conference room chairs, 12 chairs, and 4 office chairs. Greater Dayton Apartment Association for Dayton Public Schools, supplies worth of $3,309. Ohio EPA Southwest District Office for Kemp Elementary School, supplies worth of $1,400. William Scaff Dayton Public Schools, electric guitar. Thank you, donors.
Like always, definitely want to thank our donors, and much appreciated. Do we have any questions on donations? I think so. Your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer.
Next one is purchase requisitions. We have several purchase requisitions from different departments. Let's look at them, and if you have any question, we'll answer.
Okay, give a moment to look over purchase requisitions if you have not seen them yet. If we have any questions already? Feel free. Board Member Sampson.
Mr. President, I think I brought this up before. As relates to our student resiliency coordinators, I'm really interested in data. I understand that they are, it's difficult to find individuals that are working to help meet the mental health needs of our scholars. I'm interested in seeing, since 2020, how many youth have they served, what services have been provided, because this is another, $5 million, and I really, really want to know how effective are they in serving the scholars as it relates to mental health needs.
They actually will be here next week with that information. And this also includes this student behavior therapist, the on-site counselors that do immediate counseling with our students. Those were added last year, so that's why the amount is 5 million instead of 2.5.
To follow up with that, I would like just some information on how the process goes to get our children involved with the program. Where's the recommendations coming from? How are they getting recommended and referred to our student resiliency coordinators? And then also, just if we possibly get a breakdown of what exactly this covers, the numbers of not only our counselors, but student resiliency coordinators, so we can see that as well, to follow up the question from Board Member Sampson. Are there any other questions on purchase requisitions? I think Dr. Goodwin was up, and I'll go directly to you, sir.
Gotta be quicker than that, Board Member Sampson. First question for you, I have two. On the RTA bus passes, how's that going? Are students riding? Is it smooth? Is it not smooth? Do we know if they're using them? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Dr. Burton?
We do not have the number of actual riders. We do know that we have been providing passes to buildings, and principals have been distributing those passes to students.
How's the relationship with the RTA with our students?
I'm sorry.
How's the relationship between the RTA and our students? Do you have any feedback on how that's
No,
going?
I have not heard any feedback on.
Can you seek some feedback on how that's
Sure.
going for us?
Sure.
All right, that's all I had on that one. And then I see Shared Resource Center. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is?
The Shared Resource Center is the group that's been working with the Treasurer's Office and the Human Resources Office.
We've been calling them shared service.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
a different name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
the same, it's the same thing,
I
right?
mistook it.
Yeah, it is the same.
And is this the one we're just talking about,
Yeah.
whether we
Yeah.
still
Yes.
need them or not?
And that's the
Yes.
same one. Do you have another question, Dr. Goodwin?
That's it for me.
Board Member Sampson.
Dr. Goodwin, in her famous fashion, took my question. Thank you so much, sir.
Gotta be faster than that, Board Member Sampson.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir, Mr. Lacy.
can I ask, how's the 3 million computed? The 3 million for Greater Dayton Regional Transit Authority?
It's the total amount of bus passes that we buy, so it's per bus pass times the number of passes that we purchase.
So what's the cost of a bus pass?
Is it, Dr. Burton? 75 for the month?
So that's for 8 months? For 8 months?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question, Dr. Lally. In looking at some of our stops that our students are getting on, for instance, if I go down Edwin C. Moses, I see the students from Ponence getting on the RTA bus. But because they're RTA buses and their stops aren't directly in front of the school, they're technically outside of what would be school zones when we have those speed limits posted. Is there any way that we could talk with the city to kind of see what we could do about that? Because some of them are then, large amounts of students in areas where people are going at a higher rate of speed than they would if they were actually catching those buses in front of the schools.
I actually spoke to the city and was referred to RTA, so I have reached out to them to talk about possibly moving some of those stops for the regular RTA routes. So,
Appreciate that, Dr. Lally. Any other questions on purchase requisitions? Board Member Sampson, then Dr. Goodwine.
You got to be quicker, Dr. Goodwine. In line with the RTA, is that $75 per pass, is that a discounted rate? It's not?
no, it is not discounted.
Thank you so much.
Expensive. Dr. Goodwine.
Y'all sure we don't get a group discount? This just seems a bit steep. My question is, on the RTA passes, the timeframes in the morning are real funky. Are we giving our students a grace period in that first 30 minutes of school to get there to not be counted tardy due to, I don't know if you guys have tried to send a teenager on the bus in the morning, but there are very few routes that get there before 8 o'clock, by 7:55, or after 8:05. Are we offering something like that to our students to realize that this is public transportation that they're utilizing?
I believe that most of the schools have some grace and allow the students to not be counted tardy on their records whenever they're RTA students, or even whenever our buses, for middle school and elementary come in late.
So do the students have to report that they're bus students, or is there something that teachers have already? 'Cause,
Most people know who has an RTA and who actually is dropped off at school. I can double check all of that for you and find out specific procedures for buildings, but I'm fairly certain that it's pretty well known, because the teachers are the ones who actually, in most buildings, manage passing out the passes from the principal or whatever, so. But I can double check that for you.
Yes, I would greatly appreciate that, as in my household, we are on the struggle of getting on the bus, but if he gets on the bus, he's late every day. So it concerns me that it's no fault of a child being late that's causing them to be late because of the way that the buses are running. That's all, thank you.
Mr. Lacy.
Okay, it took me a while to do the math. That works out to 5,000 passes. Is that a reasonable number? So that would be $600 per pass, going into 3 million. Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Mr. Sampson.
Participants to cover juvenile invoices from various area facilities, what does that entail?
Those are all of our, whenever we have the big requisition at the end of the school year to cover the juvenile courts and the juvenile facilities.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions on purchase requisitions? See, now your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer.
Next one is then and now.
As we look over it, are there any questions on then and now?
Okay.
I see none. Does that conclude your recommendations, Madam Treasurer?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we will go to hearing of the public. I'd like to remind everyone that you complete a request form prior to the hearing of the public, complete a request form and submit it to our public information officer. When called upon, identify yourself, state your name, address, and then go into your reason for addressing the board. Electronic submissions will only be used during remote meetings. A non-English speaker will need to provide an interpreter. Time may be extended due to interpreter also speaking. Address the board as a whole through the president and not board members individually. If you have materials for distribution, you can hand them to the treasurer. Limit remarks to 3 minutes, please, and it is inappropriate to address any matter involving pending disputes, grievances under a labor agreement, disciplinary action involving an employee or student, ongoing labor negotiations, concerns or matters that have already been settled, and/or any matter which, because of its nature, is deemed inappropriate to be discussed in deemed appropriate to be discussed in executive session. Madam Treasurer, do we have any people registered to speak?
Yes.
Awesome.
Shelan Shafiku.
I don't believe they are here.
Okay. Jamie Ryan. Okay. Tamra Burnett. Okay. Kelly Burkhardt.
Good evening.
My name is Kelly Burkhart. I was a DPS teacher for 23 years, and I am now a teacher at Horizon Elementary. I'd like to have the time to ask some questions about transportation. I know that as a teacher at Dayton Public School, for a long period of time, we were told to teach bell to bell, and we were told that every child needed 90 minutes of uninterrupted reading block instruction. However, I want to know if only Dayton Public School students deserve that, because that is not what Horizon students are getting, because our buses don't come on time at all 5 days a week. Also, our kids are missing breakfast, our kids are missing instructional time, and our kids are fearful that no one's coming back to get them because our buses are so unreliable. Try explaining to a 6-year-old while their bus is 2 hours late. Our students are missing extracurricular activities, drill teams, praise dance, and so many other things because their buses have not come. Most of our students have had experience with Dayton Public Schools, and that is why they come to us, because they've been traumatized, including myself. And I just want to know that every time that phone rings and it pops up Dayton Public Schools, our parents are scared. It's another day they have to find a way to get their students bused. Our questions go unanswered, they go unacknowledged, phones are turned off. That is not how you should be doing communication with parents. It's like being re-traumatized almost every day for these parents. And it's re-traumatizing myself because this is just an ongoing issue and we care about our students. I want to know how we get a list of all uncovered bus routes and miraculously, they're all charter schools. Not one Dayton Public School bus uncovered, just the charter schools. I suspect that they're pulling drivers away from our routes to drive your students. Your website says the Transportation Department employs 200 qualified bus drivers and substitutes. Where are they? Because they're not driving our kids. You're causing a financial burden for our school as we depend on teachers not to just give up time and volunteer to watch students. In our school, we actually pay the teachers to do that. And I'm leaving my building between 5 and 5:30 at night without buses ever coming. We're waiting on the last parent for pickup. I don't need to tell you that we're missing out on instructional time because your own website says just missing 10% of the school year, only a few days a month, significantly decrease their reading and math ability, GPA, test scores go down, and their likelihood of graduation goes down. So if your campaign emphasizes this, why don't our children deserve it? The DPS Transportation Department claims they have the highest marks for safety and reliability by the Ohio State Patrol. How is this even possible? You don't come. That's not reliability. You strive to provide safety and reliable transportation. That's on your website. To only your kids while collecting our kids' bus money, If DPS worked as hard to solve this transportation problem as they do to cover it up and deny our parents their reimbursement forms, this problem would have been solved a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alice Pennington.
Good afternoon, Board. I am Elise Pennington, the principal at Horizon Science Academy, Dayton Elementary, referred to as Horizon North in the Transportation Department. We reside at 4751 Sue Ann Boulevard. We have been in school since August 10th, and we are officially on week 6 of school. We are also on week 6 of having insufficient busing. Once again, I want to remind you that this is more than just the beginning of the year hiccups, as mentioned. The transportation of my students and all students in local community schools is a requirement by the law, a law that DPS is currently not upholding. This is a concern that we have been working to address directly with the Transportation Department since February. Since the last board meeting that I spoke at, I have continued to reach out to DPS Transportation about our ongoing bus concerns in hopes of finding a solution. On August 18th, Dr. Burton did contact me and advise me that she was having my school removed from the tiered busing system to finally meet our bell schedule that I discussed earlier. Thankfully, this did go into effect on August 22nd, but unfortunately, with this new change, our buses are now uncovered, and they are not showing up to deliver our students to or from school. I have now been told directly by transportation that this is because my buses do not have assigned bus drivers. So I am at the mercy of whoever may be available to transport my students on a day-to-day basis. Just yesterday, 2 of my 4 buses arrived. Only 2 arrived, so we're at a 50% rate right there. This varies on a daily basis, but there has not been a single day where all of my buses have arrived to school. I have multiple families who are in fear of of not having transportation. They are now facing truancy because they are unable to get their students to school. These families are dependent upon Dayton Public Schools transportation, and so are we. I have some parents who have lost their jobs because they've had to leave early on multiple days to pick their students up due to these uncovered buses. My students are continuing to miss out on a significant amount of their educational time because these buses are just simply not showing up. These are students that reside in the community in which we all live here. They're our students. These students are your responsibility to transport to school, and this is still not being done. At this moment, Dayton Public Schools is supporting the expansion of the educational gap our students already face. Our shared common goal should be to close that gap regardless of what school they are enrolled in. Instead, Dayton Public Schools is now restricting my students' right to an education. These students are our future, and you are currently failing them. We as a community need you to take immediate action to solve all of the transportation issues and support our shared community of students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Yu.
Good evening. Mr. Yu, 6615 Edgington Square. Tonight I am here in support of the Dayton teachers. I am hoping that they will get a fair benefit and pay package in this current negotiations, because Dayton teachers teach Dayton kids. Dayton teachers save Dayton kids' lives. I have been in the Dayton schools for 53 years. I graduated from Belmont High School. I was a regular teacher for 35 years, and I have subbed in Dayton schools for 10 years. I'm going to tell you that Dayton schools have some excellent schools, because I have been in most of the schools. Some of the schools experience a few more problems, but those teachers give 110% every day to teach those children because they love them. I am standing in solidarity with the Dayton teachers, and I hope they can get a fair package, because Dayton teachers teach Dayton kids. Dayton teachers save Dayton's kids' lives. God bless you.
Thank you.
That concludes tonight's hearing of the public.
Thank you, and I appreciate everyone that came out to speak. Next is a resolution to authorize the superintendent to charge on her contract-approved credit card 2 subscriptions of LifeLock due to personal information breach occurring because of Dayton Public Schools. The total is not to exceed $675. Are there any questions? Now, I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution. Do I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions on the motion? If there are no questions, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
7 yeses, motion carries. Next, I recommend the approval, I make a motion to approve the appointment of David Lawrence as our business manager. Do I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions on the motion? If there are no questions, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
No.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
No.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
5 yeses, 2 no.
5 yeses, 2 noes, motion carries. I would like to welcome Mr. Lawrence back into the district, and I would like to say that with this position, that this board and this district, we look forward to moving forward in innovative ways. We also look forward to the collaborative approach between all of our board-appointed employees, and want to say that this in no way takes away from the position that we have in supporting not only Mr. Lawrence, but Treasurer Abraha and our superintendent, Dr. Lally. So we look forward to seeing them all working together. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that we are in full support of all 3 of them and look forward to the work that will occur from all 3 of them working together. Next. Let me refresh. Okay. Pursuant to Section 121.22G2 of the Ohio Revised Code, I move that this board go into executive session. This meeting is being held to consider the appointment, employment, and dismissal of a public employee. Do I have a second? Also to prepare for negotiations and confer with our attorneys. I did not. No.
Does anybody have the 48-hour and the Delco on there? Did you refresh?
Mhm.
Where is it? We're voting right now. Could you step back?
All right. All right. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
No, I don't really know what this is.
Oh.
Oh, for executives, I thought this was something about Delco. Okay, I'm sorry, it's a yes, Madam Treasurer. If I
Okay.
may change it, if not, I'm too late.
7 yeses.